Listen closely. The story begins with a sound you can't hear on a map, the rasping breath of a child in the dark. It's January 1925, and the wind over the Bering Sea has teeth. Nome, Alaska, sits on its edge like a stubborn lantern on a frozen dock, one of the last specks of light before the world turns to ice. The sun barely shows itself. The air bites at 30, 40, 50 below. On those nights, you can hear the buildings creak like old ships. And in a little clinic near Front Street, a doctor bends over a small bed and knows, in his bones, that the old enemy has come ashore. Diphtheria. If you've never seen it, count yourself lucky. It starts like a common cold, then tightens. A gray, leathery film grows in the throat, and each breath becomes a bargain. Children turn from feverish to blue. There is an antidote, an antitoxin that can turn the tide, but only if it gets there in time. The doctor is Curtis Welch. He checks his cabinet. The vials are there, dusty, precious, expired. Nome's winter will shame any supply line, and the last delivery came on a ship that sailed away months ago. He tests one vial anyway. It fails. He looks at the clock. He looks at the child. And while the storm piles snow against the clinic windows, the numbers begin to move. Cases multiply across town. By the 1st of February, there are 28 confirmed children and adults together, and the shipment fighting its way north carries enough antitoxin for only about 30 people. In the weeks to come, the ledger will show roughly 70 documented cases and 5 to 7 deaths in town, numbers that almost certainly miss what happened in nearby native communities where illness traveled faster than the paperwork ever could. The math is cruel. Without fresh serum, one sick child becomes 2, then 10, then a village, then a coast. In that deep cold, the question is simple and impossible at the same time. How do you get life-saving medicine to a town trapped behind 1,000 miles of snow and sea ice? In the lower 48, the newspapers say airplanes are the future, modern, fast, precise. But the planes available in Alaska that winter are open cockpit biplanes with engines that freeze like teardrops on a window. The pilots know what an Arctic headwind can do to a man. The governor and the territorial health officials argue the options, and a few voices, quiet at first, say what locals have always known. The old path has not failed. There is a trail. There are men who know it. There are dogs that can read the wind like a printed page. The word goes out along telegraph lines and trading posts, a relay. The serum, 300,000 units of antitoxin, will go by train as far as steel rails will carry it, to Nenana. After that, sleds. Not one team but many lined up like lit fuses. Handoffs timed in the teeth of the dark. That decision is not just logistics. It's an admission of respect. This is a land where technology still asks permission from weather and terrain. The mushers who answer the call are a mix of native and non-native Alaskans, Inupiat, Yupik, Athabascan, Scandinavians, people whose lives are measured not in miles, but in weathered miles. They pull from their kennels the quiet professionals, lean dogs with hawk-bright eyes, chests like bellows, coats thick as promises. And they select a lead dog the way a captain chooses a first mate, someone who can feel a trail under drifted snow, smell the coastline through a blizzard, and never blink at the dark. When the train hisses into Nenana, the serum is already colder than a good whiskey glass, packed in layers like a sleeping child. A musher takes the first leg into the night. The handoffs begin, each team moving like a remembered verse in a long poem. They run the frozen rivers, Tanana, Yukon, where the ice pops like gunfire and the silence afterward is unbearable. In places the moon is so bright the snow glows, and in others the sky is a smeared thumbprint of black and ash. The trail markers are a rumor, a memory. The wind decides who gets to pass. Out there, speed is not bravado. It's calculation. If you run too fast, you break your dogs. Too slow and children die. So the men whisper to their teams, cluck their tongues, and measure the rhythm by the tug on the gangline. Each checkpoint is a jolt of light, Lanterns swinging, someone shouting your name, bare hands working clumsy with cold to pass the bundle. Your breath frosts your mustache and you can't feel your fingertips. Then it's back into the long white. There's a moment in every Arctic story where the land tests your claim to it. For the Serum Run, that trial has a name, Norton Sound. It's a bay the size of a small country, a sheet of sea ice that sometimes holds and sometimes doesn't. In a storm, the ice can break and drift and then slam back together, snarling into jagged quilt seams that can slice a sled runner clean through. In a calm, it's faster than land if you trust it. Leonhard Seppala trusts it. He's one of the greatest mushers the North has ever seen. He has a lead dog named Togo, a small, steel-willed Siberian whose ears seem wired to the horizon. Seppala cuts a line across Norton Sound like a man tracing an old scar. The wind knocks him sideways, grains of snow stinging his eyes. Togo drives into it without drama. He knows what Seppala knows: hesitation kills. They're in the middle of that white emptiness when the storm shifts, the ice rumbling like a living thing. People will later argue whether it was madness or mastery to choose the sea path. But to Seppala, it was a calculation, distance saved, time bought, a bet placed on the kind of dog at your lead. Togo threads them between pressure ridges, finds the flat, and keeps the team in a tight line. The world has been stripped down to only two truths: forward and hold. By the time Seppala comes off the Sound, he has carried the serum farther than any other musher will. He hands the bundle to the next man like passing a heart for transplant. One swift motion, nothing dropped, no speeches. His job is not done. He'll run again because that's what men like him do, but now the relay has its own momentum. It is a moving vow. The handoffs become a metronome in the headlines. A man named Charlie. Another named Victor. Names that in any other winter might never leave their own post offices and kitchens. They run in temperatures that crack wood and thought. Their dogs wear frost masks of their own breath. Sometimes a lead falters and a swing dog steps up without asking. You learn a lot about character when the rope goes tight. The last leg, people argue about it even now. The serum reaches a place called Bluff. The plan changes. A storm closes in like a fist. The next musher in line can't be found. Maybe he's dug in somewhere smart, waiting it out. Gunnar Kaasen decides to go on. He knows the last miles better than any map. His lead dog is named Balto. He's not the fastest dog in the north, not the most decorated. But he's steady. In a crisis, steady can be holy. The wind hits them coming off the cape, a wall of air that flattens men and carves gullies in snowbanks like riverbeds. Visibility drops to the end of your arm. Kaasen wraps one mittened hand around the handlebar and presses the other against the parcel like it's his own child. Balto leans into the gale with a posture that says, "This is not about you or me. This is about the thing behind us that we've chosen to carry." Warnings in a storm aren't trumpets, they're whispers. The ice sounds different under your runners. The dogs start to high-step in powder that's hiding driftwood. Then the trail goes sideways, one gust, one buried ridge, and the sled rolls. You hear the crack of wood, feel the gangline snap tight, and watch the wrapped bundle vanish into the dark like a candle blown out. For a second there is only wind. Then Kaasen is moving, on his knees, then belly down, raking the snow with his mitts. Nothing. He sweeps a circle around the tipped sled, breath counting off the yards he's stealing from himself. "No!" He pushes farther, marking a clumsy grid with his elbows while the drift fills his tracks behind him. The lantern guttering on the sled throws a small, unhelpful halo. Balto whines once and goes quiet, as if even sound might bury the thing deeper. He goes back to the start and searches again. Slower. Fingers numb, then useless. He peels one mitten with his teeth and reaches bare skin, burning, then gone, because sometimes you have to feel for hope. Nothing. The storm sands his cheeks raw. He imagines the clinic windows in Nome and the way a nurse would be listening to a child breathe, in and out, thinner each time. He says out loud, because it keeps the dark from finishing its thought. I won't go back empty. He starts over again, smaller circles, counting them. 1, 2, 3. On the fourth pass, his knuckles hit something that isn't snow. A corner. A strap? He digs like a man freeing a trapped lung, hauls the parcel up, and for a heartbeat presses it to his chest the way you do a child you almost lost. The lashings go on fast and clean, every knot a promise. He rights the sled, sets the runners, and touches Balto's shoulder. Hike. The team surges, and the storm swallows the hole he left, as if none of it ever happened. No one writes a song about that part, but maybe they should. When they finally come down Front Street, it's not triumph that travels first. It's quiet. It's early on February 2nd, the dark still holding the edges of the town, and the sound is runners on hard snow and a few people's boots as they step into the street still pulling coats around themselves. Kassan stumbles into the clinic, his beard white with frost, his face raw. He places the serum on the table where Dr. Welch is waiting, and there is this moment, small, private, too ordinary for the headlines, when two men look at each other and know they are on opposite ends of the same promise. They thaw the vials just enough, draw the amber solution into syringes with careful hands, and the first needles touch the first arms. A nurse named Emily works through the night, sleeves rolled, voice steady, an anchor in a room full of fear and hope. In the days that follow, the curve bends. Children begin to breathe easier. A town unclenches. Word travels back down the wire, not a miracle, just men and dogs and stubbornness. And then the world does the thing it always does. It chooses its heroes for reasons that don't tell the whole story. Reporters like a neat ending. Kassan and Balto are the final image, and the final image is what sticks. A statue goes up in Central Park in New York City, a bronze dog with his head high and paws planted, the base carved with 3 words schoolchildren still whisper as they toss crumbs to pigeons. Endurance, fidelity, intelligence. People line up to take pictures. Balto tours the country. Fame is a strange blanket, warm in some places, thin in others. But those who know the trail nod toward a smaller dog from a fiercer stretch of ice. Togo, grizzled even before the run, carried the longest, hardest miles across Norton Sound under a sky that could have erased them without a second thought. In the kennels and along the coast, mushers speak his name with a kind of quiet. Both dogs, in their different ways, did what was asked. Both stories are true. One simply fits better on a postcard. There's another truth that's easy to miss if you only read the headlines. This wasn't a single man's courage. It wasn't even 20 men's courage. It was a network of trust built over generations, indigenous knowledge of the land and ice, the craft of reading snow and wind, the relationship between a musher and a team that is half language and half something older. It was the realization that progress is not a straight line from old to new, but a braid. Steel rails handed to woodrunners. Telegraph keys to human hands. Science in a bottle that had to be carried by living muscle over a land too vast for machines that winter. If you ask a historian about the Serum Run, they'll give you the dates and the miles. If you ask a musher, they'll tell you about the way a lead dog's ears tilt when the trail curves under drift. If you ask a nurse, she'll tell you the color that came back to the faces of the children, slowly, then all at once. Each of those is a true account, each of them a way of measuring victory. The race didn't end in 1925. It turned into a memory that keeps us honest. The modern Iditarod traces parts of that route now, a long gamble across old snow, a reminder each year that there was a time when the difference between tragedy and tomorrow morning came down to men and dogs choosing to leave a warm stove and step into a wind that could strip paint. There's a reason that statue in New York doesn't list every name. It can't. It stands there to ask a question instead. When the thing that needs doing requires the oldest tools and the newest resolve, who steps forward? It would be easy to end here with the triumph, the delivered medicine, the rescued children, the handshake in the clinic. But the Serum Run leaves us with something more complicated and maybe more valuable. The knowledge that heroism can be unglamorous, that the heroes themselves may disagree about who deserves the song, that we often owe our lives to people we will never meet and animals who never asked for monuments. On certain winter nights, if you find yourself far enough from the city to hear your own footsteps, you can imagine the sound of runners over hard snow, the soft jingle of harness hardware, the low huff of working dogs, the one word repeated over and over in the dark by a voice that holds doubt at bay: hike. 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 It's not a prayer. It's a promise, made mile by mile, that the medicine will get there, that the child will breathe easier, that the light on the edge of the map will hold. And maybe that's why this story still matters. Because somewhere, right now, a nurse is watching a patient's chest rise and fall and thinking about the next dosing time. Somewhere, a pilot is pre-flighting a plane in freezing rain. Somewhere, a neighbor is knocking on a door with a casserole and a tired smile. The details change, the distance does not. The ordinary relay of care continues hand to hand, heart to heart, in blizzards and in quiet rooms. The dogs did not know the newspapers were watching. The men did not know which part of their story would be carved in bronze. They only knew the rule that matters on the worst nights. We carry what needs carrying. We go when it's our turn. And if the wind takes our names, the work will still mean something. Endurance. Fidelity. Intelligence. 3 words stamped into metal. 100 lives breathed into air. A town that survived because people refused to let it vanish into the snow. If you ever find yourself on Front Street in Nome in the dull light of late afternoon, put your glove against the clinic doorframe and stand there a moment. Listen. Imagine somewhere out on the white snow, wind is moving across old tracks. You may hear a single word carried thin on the wind: hike. The past is not calling you back. It's asking you forward. I sincerely hope you enjoyed this story. If you would, please like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment. It helps the channel grow and keeps the stories coming. Thank you for listening.